But on we move to our closing plenary, and we have Holly Hanson. How would I pronounce it? Guvenli? No. Is it
I will give you
you?
that's close enough. Güvenli. It's an umlaut, so it's
It
up
isn't
to
them.
you, Chris. Yes, it is.
It's
It's a
ooped to
Turkish
me.
umlaut.
It's
Yes,
oop to me.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
and your talk is me, me, me. Already, I love it. How to increase learner engagement through active learning. Now, for those who don't know, Holly is the Director of Studies at IH La Spezia. And you've also been teaching CLIL lessons in Italian state schools. Wow. Gosh, brave person. And training teachers in CLIL methodology and materials creation. You got your CELTA a little bit before I did from the British Council in Izmir in Turkey. It was called Izmir then, wasn't it? It wasn't Smyrna.
No, it was not Smyrna at that time. It was Izmir. Yes. Yes. Thank
Um,
you for that, Chris.
I am a joy to work with. Um, you've completed your Delta, which is an amazing achievement. I think anyone who even attempts the Delta, um, you know, you kneel for no man, as they say in Lord of the Rings. You've taught pretty much every form of English going, and you've taught all over the place. So we are now going to benefit from your knowledge and your experience and your enthusiasm, most of all. So, uh, ladies and gentlemen, our closing plenary. Holly, over to you.
Wow. What an introduction. Hopefully, it won't disappoint. But I will just start by saying that all of this teaching experience connects to when I was a language learner of Turkish. And that is because I was actively engaged in learning and using Turkish. And guess what? That's what I'm fluent. That's my second language that I'm fluent in. Um, but it was not in a classroom, really. But I also realized that all the teaching I've done and all the teaching I am doing and all of the teacher training, when your learners are not engaged, nothing's happening. They are not learning. Nothing is happening. So this has become a big issue for me, and I deal with this with my teachers that I train. If your learners are not doing something or focused on anything, they really are not learning. And that comes out at the end of a lesson or in an assessment that becomes very apparent. So what I normally do at the beginning of a lesson, and I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Can you see my screen? I don't think it's sharing
You'll
anymore.
need to reshare because I
Yep,
stole
that's
it.
right. You stole my screen. I forgot about that. Let me right. Forgot all about that. Okay, one moment. Let's go back here and reshare. Okay, actually go to this one. This is what I had. Okay. Anyway, hands up. Excited learners. Me. I want to answer the question. When that happens, you know you've got them. They are engaged. But not all learners do this. Adults generally don't jump in and do this. They might, but it's a sign of engagement. And what I normally do in every lesson, I've taught online. I've had to jump in and teach lessons create lessons in 5 minutes because I learned 5 minutes before that I was teaching a group. So the one thing that connects everything is an introduction. I always tell people who I am, and depending on the size of the class, I ask the learners, tell me your name. At least tell me your name. Make some connection, some kind of a connection. And I would do this frequently when I taught online with British Council. I would always do this. And we would do brief introductions because that's important. But in this session, we have many things we'll look at, and you all may be more informed than I am on some of these topics. So I will go through them fairly quick because I do want to get here to learning how to apply AL, not AI, active learning strategies to different EL contexts. But because I'm not sure if everybody knows what active learning really is, I I am starting with this, and we'll look at this and student engagement and kind of break down some definitions. Look at the theory behind active learning, or theories briefly. Some benefits for our learners when using an active learning approach. And then this bit, this learning how, are real life examples that are from my teaching experience. And yes, reflection, because that's really important for me. It makes a huge difference for learners. So here we go. This is a photo actually just from a class I had in Miami Beach, and looks like they're not really doing anything, but I've given them a very serious interview. It's a crowded class. We'll see them again. But here we go. I have a definition here from a lady named Elizabeth Barkley. I don't know her personally, but I like her definition. She says that student engagement, and I put learner because I usually use learner over student, is the product of motivation. So that's going to be your own motivation or something external, extrinsic, and active learning, right? So a product rather than a sum, because it will not occur if either element is missing. That's true. That is true when you think about that. That's quite a true definition. And what I would like you guys to do, and Chris may control what I'm doing here, I don't know. I'm just curious what you think an engaged and motivated learner looks like. And you can use adjectives or whatever words you would like in the chat. What does a motivated, engaged learner look like? Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they excited? Whatever words you would like, pop them into the chat. You don't have to write something long, just whatever words you think of that come to mind right away. Oh, good. Yeah, focused, definitely. Definitely focused, yeah, and excited. I will answer first. Yes, that's true. Me, exactly. Asking questions, sharing comments, stories. Hungry for new. Yeah, hungry for new knowledge. Definitely, Christina. This is good. If they have a resting face, they might still be engaged and motivated. They just happen to be Polish. That's, yes, some of this is cultural though. That's a pretty valid statement there, Chris. That some of this is cultural. Um, I've taught learners from 35 different countries, and that can be a factor, definitely. Confident, they ask a lot, hands up, yeah, inquisitive, exactly. So you've got the facial expression, you've got the physical bit, oh, responsive, definitely. That's a big sign. Um, Lots of body language and lots of, ways that they react to you. A good listener. Yeah, exactly. All of these. When they say thank you is always great. Then you know that they've really paid attention. That's true. Or maybe they paid attention to nothing. I don't know. No, that usually they do. I mean, all of these are signs of an active, a motivated, engaged learner, clearly. Can't control smiling. Oh, Tong, I'm not sure if I'm saying your name right. Tong, this is good. They make eye contact. Yeah, Julia, that's really important, isn't it? All of these things you guys are mentioning are extremely important. Sean, pay attention. Yeah, these very important. And you all know when your learners are not engaged. It's pretty clear. And sometimes it's difficult to get that back. But what we're going to look at here is just a little graphic I put together just with that equation that Elizabeth gave us. So student engagement, everything you guys were saying, really. Displaying curiosity, asking or answering questions, interest, enthusiasm, willing to participate. Their motivation, which can be external, extrinsic, or intrinsic, or both. Their needs or wants. Some of them might be very much into learning by themselves. They might be very good with learner autonomy skills. They are driven. But active learning, so how does this fit? I need something else here with the equation. So what exactly? is active learning? My little owl friend would like to know. My next slide here is an example of active learning that I've used in a lot of different lessons, a KWL chart, and some of you probably know what this is. Know, want, learned. This allows a learner to really track what they're doing throughout a lesson. It allows them to track their own learning. And it doesn't have to be done in a lesson. It could be done over the course of a course, however you would want to use this. But I found this very useful. And I have used this with 8-year-olds. I have used this with adults. The interesting part, 8-year-olds give more information than adults. They of course have no filter. They will draw pictures, they will do what they can. But the idea is exactly this. So I was going to use the chat again, but I don't know if Chris will allow this. What I wanted you to do was similar to what we just did. And you will see this chart again. This is for you to use. What is active learning? And you could put just a word in the chat again, just a brief word or a short description. What is active learning to you? What does that mean? Oh, look. Oh, this is great. Look at you guys. Yeah. Conscious about their learning. Learners owning their own learning. Yeah. Participating without the fear of making mistakes. Learning by doing, taking ownership, active thinker, putting language into practice. Yeah, I mean, all of this is key. And if any of you, I'm going to say most everybody here, speaks more than one language, however you learned it, you know that you had to do some of this to learn that language. You simply couldn't sit there and be told, this is how we speak Malay. No, you've got to use it. So what exactly is it? We're going to look at a real official definition. And the reason this definition is important, I work in this CLIL world, content and language integrated learning. They base everything on what they do with this definition. Active learning is instructional activities involving students in doing things and thinking about what they're doing. It seems so simple, but not really, because this was 1991. These two gentlemen, I don't know if they were professors, but they did this at George Washington University, a response to developments in adult cognitive and educational research, contrasting traditional lecture approaches. It involves the use of engaged activities, developing critical thinking skills. Exactly that. So how you learned as a child is how we should learn throughout life in reality. It doesn't always work that way. But this definition we'll use throughout this whole session. And this definition isn't specific to just traditional educational settings. This idea is used all over the place. It was used years ago. If any of you are familiar with Montessori, I imagine many of you are. Montessori education programs, they live this. This is what the learners are always doing things. This is how I grew up, so I know this, and it was amazing. And you never forget it. This was done way before this definition, but everything else, on-the-job training to enhance skills. If you onboard for a job, they're looking for skills. Can you do what I need you to do? Doing those things and thinking about what you're doing. I have some other items here. Forest schools in Norway. These are like young children nurseries where they go to school outside in the winter, and they're doing things outside. It's quite amazing. Harkness method. This is the idea where you sit around a table. You're not at singular desks, but you sit in a round table and have discussions. That promotes a lot of discussion. CLIL, of course, this is what I'm very familiar with. Task and project-based learning wouldn't really exist without this idea. That's the purpose of this task and project-based learning. That's what we want to do at the end of a lesson or maybe at the beginning. Also English language teaching, of course. It's not like we've never used it before. And CLIL and English language teaching are not really, they're connected, but their approaches are just a little bit different. So here's a graphic I found last night, actually, and I thought it was kind of interesting because I never thought of things this way. It's quite detailed. I'm not sure the research is from this website. Passive learning. Okay, so traditional listening, lecture, what have you. Lots of teacher talk, which all of us are really good at sometimes. 10% of what we read. Quite interesting. So you're just reading. You're not doing anything with the reading. You're not doing the things like Stephen was talking about. You're just reading. 20% of what you hear, but again, you're just listening. See in here, 50%. Okay, now we're getting better. 70% of what we say and write. So maybe some of you are like me, you make lists so you don't remember, so you remember to do things. I do this frequently. But 90% of what we do, yeah, definitely. And over on this other side, we've got examples of some thinking skills that we use in each part. They're all necessary. It's just that some are more about passive learning and others are more active. We remember these things when we do this, when we think hard about doing things. And this connects. This is a weird little circle, but I found this to represent Bloom's taxonomy, but in a more creative, interesting way, because these are the skills we all want. I know there was somebody talking about future skills, and that really connects still to Bloom's taxonomy, which is not new. Also, it's not really hierarchical. It can be. It's useful to remember things or name them, and then we can use that language as we move around the circle so that we can create, compose, construct. And I put this note here. A teacher thought, these are real world skills. My learners need these skills for life, and they need to use a different language to perform these skills. So how can I get them more excited about using English? Active learning. So here's the little KWL chart again. So you can use this for your own purpose, but now I want you to add, this should say column 2. I had no proofreader. Column 2, please. What I want to know about active learning. So this is for your purpose. You can use this for your purpose. We won't throw things in the chat on this. You use it for your own record. And you can keep track of what happens here. Okay, so quickly, yes, you'll have to let me know, Chris, where we are with time. If I don't know when we started, but I think we're okay. Okay, the theory behind active learning. Some of you will probably know exactly what I'm about to talk about. So I will read it to you, but I won't take a lot of time. There's this theory of constructivism, which many of you probably know. Jean Piaget. I actually teach in a school named after him. It's quite daunting. But the idea was that learners replace or adapt, not maybe replace, but adapt their existing knowledge and understanding with more in-depth understanding when doing something new. So this child here, this looks very simple but he's doing something. He realizes that if one shape doesn't fit properly, he's got to do it another way, right? This is what's happening right there. It's a moment, but a really important moment. And that learning goes into our long-term memory. These mental models called schemata, what we do at the beginning of a lesson, we want to bring out that background knowledge that our learners have. There's another bit attached to this. We have these social constructivists that said we need interaction. We can't do this alone. We need we grow and learn when we interact with others. And Lev Vygotsky, I think I'm saying it correctly. Many of you have heard of this zone of proximal development. This is where we as teachers come in. We're going to guide the learner. We're going to help them learn and use some new skills. It's that gap between what they can do and by themselves and what they can do with guidance. And then here, scaffolding. Learning occurs in this ZPD as learners move step by step. It's like climbing a ladder. And this is that idea of scaffolding. Helps learners solve problems, complete tasks, reach objectives they couldn't do without assistance or be far too difficult. So active learning strategies are scaffolded naturally by design. And this bit, which isn't really completely necessary, but it's useful because if I can get my learners to do these things using English, I've accomplished quite a great, well, they've accomplished a great deal. I'm guiding them. I'm not doing it for them. They're doing it. I'm giving them tools. I'm giving them things to use and practice these skills, which are life skills, really. This is how we function. And I wrote here, it's not really necessarily true. Ideally, you begin with things you remember, and then you can apply them, evaluate, create, but not necessarily. Okay. Benefits. These are more of my students. We're going to see more of my group in Miami. I am allowed to use their photos. I cannot use any photos of 8-year-olds, so that is not okay. So we are going to see lots of these other students doing things. So this is just a little graphic I put together here to kind of show you a cycle. In the classroom, yes, it might happen outside the classroom, but you get these motivated learners. So already your learners are motivated because they're coming to class. They're taking the course. They're already motivated to some extent. We can't say they're not motivated or they wouldn't be there. And then in the class, so here's my definition again, these instructional activities, that's what I'm going to use. Active learning strategies. And I put notes here that say low resource and easy to use. You will see that. This may or may not involve AI. It depends on your context or your needs or the needs of the learners. And then I get, ideally, motivated and engaged learners. So I've got the motivation, I engage them, and then this is what happens. Their knowledge increases, knowledge and understanding of what they're learning increases. So problem solving, I'm missing a word here. They have their better problem solving skills and their confidence grows, definitely. They're not doing it alone. They're probably doing it in pairs or a small group. That's the idea. That's part of the scaffolding. It's a little scary to jump out and do it on your own. And then further down the road, the lesson, the course, or whatever, increased learner autonomy and better recall due to frequent purposeful use of English. Wow, I needed a proofreader. Use of English. So that's what happens. And we know this because we all have used another language, and that is how this works. So as a teacher, I really need to do this in my classroom so my students are learning. And then I have a little note here about assessment. People like to criticize active learning strategies saying, oh, well, how do you measure that? How do you know they're learning anything? Well, there's this little thing we call AFL. Actually, that should be a capital L. Assessment for learning, which is exactly what it says. It connects more to a formative assessment. You might tell your learners one week, hey, we're going to do a little quiz on Friday, or you might even assess them without them knowing, which sometimes works better. That's formative. You're trying to get information about, what you're doing in the classroom working. Are they learning? Or maybe there's something you're missing. Summative, so you might think of high stakes exams, IELTS, Cambridge exams, pretty stressful. So now it feels, ooh, so formal. But no, the idea behind active learning, it helps learners think critically and holistically so they can approach a high stakes exam with more confidence and more skills. They're actually better for it. And this little Vanderbilt University is a school in the US that does a lot with education research. And without giving you all the details, this is what they got from some research through the 90s. Traditional lecture yielded a higher probability of failure on an exam than active learning. So it is very useful. Okay, now the meat of the sandwich. By the way, if anyone has a question, I don't know, what do you want them to do, Chris? It's up to you. Put it in the chat, put it in a Q&A, I don't know.
Yeah, chat would be good. We've done well with the
Okay,
chat so far.
okay, good, good. Yeah, so any questions, or if you want me to go back, again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on those bits, but they're important to understand what we're doing because I do want information from you guys and your experience. Also, I just want to make a note on the color scheme of these slides. I have a friend who works with dyslexic learners, and he said, please do not make the background white. So I tried to make it pink. I don't know. He helped me do a little different design. So anyway, okay. So this is what I created with this ZPD, which we all know, this is where a learner learns. And I am part of that as the teacher. So a lesson format. I've got my warmer or lead in. You might have one or both of those. Depends. It depends on your lesson, depends on what you're doing. But this is what we're doing. We're getting at that background knowledge. We want to activate their schemata, get them thinking. And then we have here what I call guided input. Generally, it's really input, but it is guided because you're there. You are giving the learner something that they're going to learn from. So they need your help. That's the purpose. You provide new information as scaffolded input. It's going to be bit by bit. Then we get to the part where they get to practice. I don't think you can see this very well. Learners make meaning and build new knowledge together. So ideally, you get them practicing in pairs, small groups, whole class. Use what they've been learning, but practice. They're not going to present or do anything magical now. This is just practice. Then we get to the output. And this is where the fun can begin because this is the end, what I'm calling the end of this ZPD. Now they're going to show you, not perfectly, but what they've learned. And they're going to use what they've learned to apply to some task or to something you've given them where they can use that language. They feel more confident from the practice. And now they're going to do something, preferably not alone yet. But it again, it depends. End of the lesson, post ZPD, reflection. Reflection is really important. So they internalize what they've learned. They've got to think about it. In the middle, I've just put this assessment for learning because it's happening all the time. And you are the one to decide how formal that is. Again, if you're getting them ready for a high stakes exam, you can do all of that with this format. I was listening to Chris talking about using feedback from AI. I've had my IELTS students write their essays and put them into actually Google Gemini I use and get the feedback from it. I said, it's not a grade. It's not your band score. It's feedback. And then you work from that. And so when they know how to use it, it can be very useful. And then you're increasing learner autonomy as well. Okay, so here is the next step. And Chris, I don't know we're probably not doing breakout rooms right now. You have to tell me. No, he's like, no. So what I want you to do, we're going to break this down. Can you think of active learning activities, and I'm sure you're doing some, that you use in your lessons that might fit into one of these stages or where you think it fits? Just type it in the chat. So pick a stage and think about something that you do at that stage, or maybe you don't even know where it really is fitting, but you know it's active learning because your learners are engaged. So think about actually anything you're doing in a lesson, any lesson, that you think would really be active learning because you're probably already doing this. Just go ahead and type it in the chat, guys. Yeah, these are good. Oh, Christina, yeah, guided output, all this. Oh, guided discovery. Look at this reflection. I allow my students to use L1. Oh, this is Chris, you're cheating. I'm kidding. Use L1. Yes. Okay. Might have the language to allow true reflection. Yeah, exactly. Element of reflection is important regarding, I totally agree. Christina, guided output, role play, guided input, guided discovery, guessing based on examples. Yeah. Warmer lead in. What do you think? Know about? Would like to know about X. Yeah. I mean, this is all active learning, all of this. Practice. I've got who's got game. This is good. Yeah, these are really good. And a note on the bit, Chris, where you're talking about use of the L1. I know somebody was talking a little bit about translanguaging at the end of the last session. I do that all the time. And I'm not fluent in Italian at all. What I do is I ask my learners to think about what this means in their own language because I need them to make a connection. Otherwise, they're just, a glove puppet. Oh, Anna, that's great. That's good. These are good. Yeah, the translanguaging can be serious translation stuff or just small. But I find it really useful because it makes that connection for learners. Translate social English into the native language. Yeah, exactly. Questions, strategies, what do you do when? Anna, you teach 2-year-olds. Okay. Guided output. Wow. Great. Tricky questions in groups to test each other's understanding. Yeah, so this is an important point. We're guiding the learners, but we do want to challenge them. We don't want to make it. It's not, the idea isn't to be easy, maybe in the beginning a little bit. Action songs. Yep, Anna, you're going to have all the kinder music stuff going on. Okay, so keep that chart. Again, ideally, I would just love to send this whole PowerPoint to you guys. Reflection, a scale score. Oh, this is really good. Yeah, I'm very confident. Okay, this is another way to even design your own assessment or learners looking at their own outcomes. That's great. That's brilliant. Yeah, using a score. Exactly. Yeah, guided discovery is using L1 is okay when they're beginners. To me, it is, Christina, because otherwise they're lost. They have to make some kind of a connection. And I speak from my own experience. I've studied other languages, but Turkish specifically. Okay, I'm going to move in to what I've done here with breaking down each stage. Hold on, almost lost you guys. Okay, the warmer, what have I done? So I'm going to show you what I have done and used time and time again, things that work. So some of these you will know. They're not anything new or, well, some might be. But find someone who, this is magic. It's magic if people don't know each other. It can be tweaked if people do know each other. You can modify this task and you can ask different questions if they already know each other. But I'm giving you a specific setting, and I do have a short video. It's about 20 seconds. I'm putting here what I did. Took 10 minutes to prepare. Well, actually, it wasn't a slide. I wrote on the board. I wrote questions on the board, to be fair. So 5 to 10 minutes preparation, 5 to 10 minutes with the warmer, but it depends on the size of your group. The video you're going to see, I walked in and I thought I had 6 students and then I had 20. This was a summer course in Miami Beach and everyone was B1. So they ended up with me and nobody knew each other. I said, guess what we're going to do? I don't have a photo of all my questions, but anything you want to ask, find someone who plays guitar, find someone who speaks 6 languages, or realistically 2. You can modify and change the questions, find someone who loves dogs. So that's an easy one. Find someone who, I had my students generate some questions. They said, find someone who has driven a Lamborghini. I said, oh, of course, it's Miami, of course. So it's for fun, and it's literally to develop their speaking skill. But this sense of community also, now they know each other a bit. Now they feel like a class, they feel like a unit. So here's a little video. Let's see if I can get this to work.
And Spanish.
Wait, sorry guys, 1 minute. I see what happened. Okay, try again. This is quick.
And Spanish. Brazil. And some words.
Okay, so the classroom I have is really small, and these poor students, they're reading off the board the questions I wrote, and they're just chatting. And they're really quite a wide variety of B1, but it really helped me, even though it's a lot of them, it gave me an idea of their level and how they function in the class. Some of them really weren't B1. There's an age difference. I've got an age range of 13 to like 35. It wasn't supposed to be that way. So I had to modify a lot of topics. Relationships, yeah. So it worked. But this was a great way to start, and I've used this before. I'm sure many of you have done this, but it's very, very useful and very helpful. The KWL chart, which you guys are looking at, which you have, duration of the lesson. Okay, we're using it now, so I just connected it. This isn't our lesson, a session, but to help learners monitor their own learning before, during, and after the lesson and promote awareness of this learning. So some of you said in the beginning about learners taking control and ownership of their own learning. Another word we like to use is agency. So they feel like they have a voice. When I've used these before, KWL chart, it depends on the class and what bits they may or may not want to share. I don't make them share these. It's not mandatory. It's not like that. Yeah, give shape to the lesson. Exactly. It does. And that also gives them confidence in you as a teacher. They have some sense of control. It's very useful for that. And I've done this with all ages. So just a little example I had here. Hold on. I moved around some slides, so I want to make sure I'm keeping everything in track. Okay. So again, example of what you've got, right? And we'll look at this at the end. And the next bit as a warmer, and I had to create this lesson. I'm laughing because I learned 5 minutes before that I was teaching this lesson. I didn't even know. I knew they were doing electricity. That's all I knew. Electricity, electromagnetism. This was more of a CLIL-based, not necessarily, but more about CLIL. 13-year-olds. What was the purpose? Brainstorm ideas about the process of electricity so that learners are engaged and better prepared for the lesson. Don't even know what they know. So I'm putting these notes about assessment for learning because they could be things that you would think about during this activity. I want to know, do learners know the meaning of the vocabulary they shared? You're going to see the slide in a minute. Or are they just repeating words? Think, pair, share is used in many, many different contexts. It is not new. They get time to think independently, and then they're more willing to share their ideas with another, so pairing, so with another student, and then they are more willing to share with the group. But it does all of this. It gives them an opportunity to recall, process, practice, communicate in a low stakes environment. So here's the slide. I had to create a whole lesson. And this is what I told them. I said, how would you explain it to a 5-year-old child? Because I wanted to elicit simple answers. I had no idea what they knew about electricity. I didn't know if they'd looked at it before in English. So these are Italian students, middle schoolers. Oh, they thought that was great. Because, oh, I'll tell my brother this. I'll tell him lights. I'll tell him. So a lot of language came out of it, which was great. They didn't really write down their ideas because Italian students like to talk as much as they can. That was fine. That was fine. They shared it with a partner. Great. And then they did get everything shared. The whole class shared everything. And then that was useful to lead into the next bit of that lesson. So here, guided input. Okay, now we're getting some more detail because there's more preparation. So if you can't read all of this, don't panic, because as I said, I want this PowerPoint just available to you. I put the prep time here because they're kind of, well, prep instructions with the time category, because it does take time. Prep time will vary. It depends on your context, what you've got available. But what you're doing, this connects a little bit to what Stephen was doing with his talk about reading activities. You prepare some mixed up, I say jumbled, true false statements about a text that learners will read. They match. First, they haven't read the text. They match those haves. Okay, they check with a partner to see if they're correct. Decide if the statement is true or false. They still don't know. Then they will check when they read the text, is the idea. I did this for a lesson that did not happen, not for any reason. The students were supposed to do something else and no one informed me. So we got to start. But it was from a lesson I wrote about doing movie reviews. And the idea was just this, to make meaning from the two sentence halves and decide if they're true or false before reading. So first, does it make sense together? Second, could it be true or false regarding the topic? And they check the meaning after reading. Okay, this is really key here. Can they put two clauses together and make sense out of them? Can they do that? That's a big step. And I'll show you on the next slide the way you should divide those sentences so they make sense. Basically this, understanding meaning from clause, sentence, and then text level. So there's a lot that they're doing with the structure of language. Definitely improves their reading skill. So here's what I did. This is just a part from a lesson about reading a movie review, one I did on Ratatouille for anybody. But here's the sentence I took just for an example. Okay, well written keeps you interested. Okay, so I did a false sentence, obviously. The film's plot is really boring. Separate, because it is written poorly. So I separated the clauses at a natural, grammatically correct separation point is what I want to do. Actually, I could separate it here if I wanted also. Depends where you want to put your linker. So this would stand alone as a sentence, right? But I could move it here if I wanted to. But this is my linked part. This is my reason. So when you do this, it takes time. You can decrease or increase the challenge. This is all up to you how you make these. It does take time to prepare but it really works, and they are much better readers. They are able to understand what they read much better because they've done this bit beforehand. Okay, mind the gap. Right. Anyone who rides the London Tube sees this everywhere. How does this work? I tell learners to pick 5 words they expect to hear or read on a lesson topic. They share the words with the class. And then I tell them they're going to read the text with a random text with, well, topic, with certain words deleted. So I give them the text and ask them to fill in the blanks. Did the words they predict fit in any of the gaps? And then you review it with a completed text. I did this as preparation for a lesson on plastic pollution and sustainability. 11-year-olds to predict language used for a project. They're going to do a project, okay, about plastic pollution. No real assessment, could be used for revision, could design this differently. Brainstorming, predicting, preparing students for the lesson, which is engaging just by doing that. And then here's what this looks like. This is what I gave them. This was generated on Google Gemini very quickly. And it worked. It was acceptable. We all know we have to review what AI gives us because any given text always has the word fosters. No, no, you've got to read what they give you. So this worked because I knew the words I wanted them to use. How did they do? I'm going to show you how they did. Did it work? How did it work? Chris, no. Okay, hold on, guys. 1 minute. This is how they did. The X's are the words they came up with. The other ones they did not. And forgive the poor photograph. I had to do this very quickly. So they came up with reduce, recycle, plastic bags, plastic pollution, petrol. The other ones, no. So they didn't do too bad. I didn't give them a complicated text. Okay, I've got 5 minutes. Let's move along. Practice. This will go quicker. You're not going to read this. I'm going to go over this because if you know what a gallery walk is, you're going to see, and I will have you read this when it's sent to you. Same students I've been showing you photographs of. We were doing a lesson on sustainability, the environment, and I just threw, they had seen some vocabulary in the text, and I said, okay, what do you know? Quickly, I did exactly as you see. I made sentences, not from the text. Other ones tacked on the wall are the missing gap. I numbered and then I numbered the sentences, put letters for the words. They had to match. And they did it in pairs. And whatever pair matched first, the other group said that they would buy them a beverage of their choice from Starbucks. That's what they told them. If you win, we'll buy you a drink. Very nice. That was their idea. So it's a competition as well, which keeps learners engaged. And they're very engaged here, these two lovely students. And this one, a jumbled dictation. So not a dictation. I apologize. Running dictation is what this comes from, where you take that dialogue, you've got pieces of it on a wall. The students have to run and put it together. They tell somebody else, how did this work? A and B, speaker A, speaker B. I have the sentences mixed up, so they're checking word order, but this response does not go with this one. They have to find the proper responses and put the dialogue in order while they are putting the sentence in order. So they've got 2 things they need to do. And this one I had to, you can see it's handwritten. I did this very quickly. Oh, so much more. Okay, hold on. I'm going to show you quickly. Guided output, role play. You guys are familiar with role play, so I'm not even going to go into this much, but this particular one, they learned how to challenge each other's opinions in a respectful manner. This is a lesson I did for British Council. you would create this for any context you would have. And you would need to give specific instructions for your learners. What is my role? This was a B2 group. This was a B2 group, so this is advanced. You would simplify this for any group you have. Presentation. My 11-year-olds again. The plastic that we were preparing for, I gave them a very quick mind map. It's very messy. It was very quick. They took the ideas, did their own. They made their own mind maps, but then this is what they did when they went to the board. This is all the things that they came up with on their own, including the artwork, of course. Error correction, you can see the English is not correct here. So I handle this in different ways. Ideally, I don't want to embarrass my students, so I would never shout at them during the presentation. I would either do it ideally before or of course after if I can't do it before, so they can correct it before they've done the presentation. Okay, and coming to the end here, guys. The very end is our reflection. You're going to do this today for me. One thing you want to remember from the lesson or the session. I give you this. Put something that you want to remember from the lesson in the chat. A word, a phrase, idea, or thought. This is feedback from an online lesson I had about music festivals. One student says, or festivals, Day of the Dead. This is their feedback. What did a magazine? That's what this student remembered. They wrote these words wrong. I corrected it for him. Okay, great. This works really well online or in a class, in a classroom. It's personalized, which is the idea with a reflection. And the learner remembers while it is hot. KWL, where we will end. What did you learn? You can make your own notes, but what I want you to do, and I know this got fast and furious, put something you want to remember from the session about increasing learner engagement with active learning in the chat. So whatever you can say, I would love it. This was fast and furious, but I knew it would be that way. And if you have any questions, what I'm going to do, hold on 1 minute. Let's see if I can pop this in here. Can I put my email in the chat, Chris?
Of course. Please do.
Okay. And I would really like to make this available to anyone who would like this.
You can send the PowerPoint to me and I'll send it out to the participants who fill in the survey. Some of the other speakers have already sent their PowerPoint through, which is very kind of them. Zoe, I've got yours. Thank you very much.
Oh, perfect. Okay, super.
I've got Glenn's. So I'll be sending things out along with the certificate of attendance.
The bottom line, what I just wanted to say to everybody is, which I think you all know, so much of what you do in your class is context driven. Who are your learners? What is your setting? What is your context? So what is nice to have are just some simple tools that you can change and modify for level and not have to rely so much on technology. If you can't, much of that, I didn't have technology, so I had no option. Okay, guys. I don't know if anyone's putting anything in the chat. I don't know, but
there have been a couple. Zoe said don't use a white background on PPTs for inclusivity. That's what she's learned, and I think that's a very good lesson for us all. Christina has written about using scaffolding to make students more eager to work with others, which is very good. We've also got think, pair, share, which is a favorite of mine as well. Because if your students get to talk about something once, they'll do it okay. If they get to talk about it twice or even 3 times, they will be better at it by that 3rd time. So yeah, fully support that myself. Thank you very much, Holly.